Well, it's good to start your Monday with that music.
It is.
I play that when I wake up, too, in the morning.
In the morning? What about the afternoon? No?
No, it gets me too fired up.
Folks, it's November. It's the 1st, 2021. Welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast. We are episode 526.
Yep. And
pulled it out.
The name of that song is 3, 2, 1, Go or something like that.
Is it really?
Or 3, 2, 1, Fun? I don't know. 3, 2, 1, Go.
Yeah, we're already struggling. It's a Monday. 3, 2, 1, Go. Hope you got your Monday off.
Some people
3,
ask.
2,
A lot
1,
of people
go.
ask.
Hope you, we'll get into some Halloween talk in here in a minute, maybe in some professional sports and obviously some triathlon. But for those of you, if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. You know, you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. So thanks for giving us your time. We cover it all. We cover swim, bike, run, specific podcasts. We do race recaps. We do race previews. We'll occasionally, once a year, do Halloween candy reviews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, and best friends, sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, both as individuals and also athletes. We also use our athletes as kind of could take a pulse of what they're going through and discussions that we have with them and how they're training and how their life is going. We work with a wide variety of athletes from across the globe. So generally what the mass is going through, most of you are going through as well. We also have an outstanding group on Facebook called Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be a part of that, just answer one simple question. We'll let you in. A lot of awesome people in there. It's a great resource for beginners and experienced athletes. And sometimes we'll go in there and do a little Q&A. And take the vibe of that community and use that to benefit the podcast to speak to the masses. We have no sponsors, although people sometimes ask us why we don't. We don't. We don't have ads. We have one agenda, though. And that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
I wonder how long it's going to be before you start saying, we have a great group on Meta.
I don't even know what Meta is.
Huh?
Meta World Peace?
No, from what I understand, that's what Facebook is changing the name to Meta.
To Meta?
Something like that.
Well, they've been going through some stuff from what I've been reading lately, and they're going to change their name to Meta.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't even know what the word, what does Meta mean?
It means
Just run our tests?
Everything's connected type of thing or something like that.
God. It already is. You don't need to tell us that. Like, let's stop it with the BS.
But they're going through some. So we'll see.
Rightfully so.
That's why we're working on our email list.
That's right. We're going to take the world by storm with Constant Contact. We're bringing it. You thought MySpace was big. Wait till we start exploding the universe with some Constant Contact.
Well, we think that's true.
blast.
I think a lot of people have kind of withered away from Meta.
Agreed.
So we've had this email list accumulating for a long ass time and never sent out a. I mean, it's been a long time. We have probably thousands of people on there, and we haven't sent out because we're just, we didn't want to, people. Yeah, but we think it might be important to have like sort of a direct contact line.
We don't have to worry about using other people as our method of communication.
Yeah. So I mean, just so we're working on it.
Listen, if we may have been that comforting, calming, rational voice on your shoulder when you're like, should I really sign up for this? Like, I get too many emails already. And you're like, well, I signed up with that Crushing Iron email list and subscribed 3.5 years ago, and I haven't gotten one email. So maybe this will be the same way, and I won't be bothered. But
yeah,
we call
that the takeaway.
We call that takeaway. We're about to bother you, baby. Speaking of getting bothered, did you get any Halloween trick-or-treaters upstairs last night? No,
none of them had the code to my building, so it was like I had to throw them over the edge. Yeah, stay down there, and I'll just throw Tootsie Rolls off my balcony.
Doing like the what's the Bourbon Street thing? You weren't throwing beads off the balcony. You were throwing throwing candy like Butterfingers and Tootsie Rolls.
Dude, there's not many kids that live in my neighborhood.
Dude, I know this.
There might be
Chris's kid come across the street and grab some candy.
Yeah,
he was immobile,
but he probably doesn't want to come to this side of the street either.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, it is the best side of the street, but still.
I think there's a couple kids on this. Like within 3 blocks.
There's maybe 2 kids. Yeah, it's not a very kid-friendly neighborhood. We took Hayden down our one street.
Motion lights everywhere.
Yeah.
Trick or treat. That's like the neighborhood's scary enough.
It is kind of scary sometimes. But ripe for investment. So just don't get scared away. Hayden was a football player yesterday. We watched football all weekend. He is all in. Yesterday morning he did not want to be a football player. He wanted to be a helicopter police officer. at the last minute. And he's like, can you make me some handcuffs? I was like, no. I can't make some handcuffs. Nor do I want to put it uncomfortably out on the neighborhood Facebook page, which I'm not even a part of. Be like, hey, does anybody have any handcuffs? No judgment, but just, can we borrow them for our, for a kid, just for the kid. Then when that's, so I was like, I got to get, because he wanted shoulder pads. He wanted to feel like a real football player because he got cleats over the weekend to play soccer with. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get him. Who needs Pinterest and Etsy? I'm going to use my brain. And so I walked in the garage and kind of scoured around, found his life jacket that actually worked perfectly to put on because it made his shoulders kind of pop up. It gave him like the front chest, and it had like the little collar on the back, like the old school like neck collars.
Oh yeah,
players used to wear. So he wore that around the neighborhood yesterday. I do have to say this, like a few things on Halloween. You got to be careful now because everyone can hear you in their doorbell, and so like the third or fourth house he went to, he was walking through their grass. He goes, they need to cut their grass. I was like, dude, you got to keep some of these things yourself. Then he walked up like to this Jeep Wrangler, like maybe 4 houses later, and he's walking on the corner, and they're outside, like in their driveway, and he didn't even see them. He goes, they need to wash their Jeep. Then I was like, dude, you got to keep these things to yourself, man, because apparently that's the thing now. People sit in their driveway awaiting you to come, and then you're forced to have like these conversations. And our neighborhood's pretty small already. It's gone through a lot of turnover recently, but I was like, man, that's next level. And I just have a very underlying deep appreciation for those people who are like, you know what? I'm not about trick-or-treating, but I'm going to leave this giant basket on the front steps for you to just kind of do your thing. Like, I'm all about that. You don't need to greet me at the door. Just leave some candy out. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Then you got some people where the cars are up front and you're like, I know you're home. And you're just choosing not to participate in Halloween. Uh-huh. And then there's this other house that's like very much like the rule following house. And they had specifically written on the basket, as if we have a ton of kids in our neighborhood of like 50 houses max. There's maybe 6 kids altogether, and most of them are under the age of like 3. 2 pieces, please. I was like, really? 2 pieces, please. You're going to have like 14 bags of M&M's, Snickers, and Reese's left over after the night. But he scored big. He went big. He got in some. There were a couple houses that gave out whole candy bars, and a candy bar. Strong. Yes, real strong. And the candy bar that I have forgotten about that my mom, it was like her old school class. She was a junior Met person, and then when you go to the movie theater and you swing by CVS or Walgreens and take a couple big candy bars in, because even back then candy bars were like $2. But Nestle Crunch.
Oh yeah.
It's a very, very, very subtle but underrated, often forgot about candy bars. And so there was a house that gave away straight up Nestle Crunch bars, like the full size, and I have a huge appreciation for that.
It's a lighter bar.
It is. It's a lighter. It's a lighter bar. It is. And then apparently there's a cookies and cream Hershey chocolate bar now.
Oh, no,
and it was a little much for me. I'm more of a traditionalist. It was a little bit much for me, but Hayden seemed to be weighing in on that.
I totally forgot it was Halloween, of course, yesterday, because I knew I didn't have to prepare for it, but I did go to the store I got sucked into the M&M cookie.
Yeah, whoa, that has nothing to do with Halloween.
I know, but it must be in the air or something, the sweet tooth thing. And I'm walking by. I went over to get like really good stuff, and it was just sitting there, and it really popped. It had this. I don't know.
You went to the bakery.
I went by the bakery,
right?
But it was just.
Did you go to Publix?
It was almost like on an extended arm that came off the table, and it was sort of like, hey, yeah, Publix. So
okay. So it is in your defense.
Yeah.
It is in a very trap-worthy side of the store, because you walk in, you go to the right, because in order to get to the produce you got to go to the right, and boom, first thing you see, bakery.
Yeah. And I just, because me, I was really like, all right, I'm going to have, like a steak or something, and I bought it. I did, and some potatoes and some, broccoli, that kind of thing. Yeah. I was really in, but then on the way home, I'm in the cookies. Driving home, and I had too many, and sugar's poison. That's the end of the story.
The sugar's poison.
I mean,
define too many. 3?
It might have been 4 or 5.
In the car?
On the way home, yeah, a lot of traffic.
There's not a lot of traffic.
I mean, that particular hour it was busy. But anyway, I remember there's a couple observations I have about yesterday afternoon and eating a lot of sugar like that. I've been feeling pretty good. I've been on the treadmill a little bit and not really doing sugar that much, at least to my knowledge.
And then yesterday you relapsed.
And I went down like that feeling. You know what I'm talking about? That feeling you get.
I know the feeling,
but it's something you can't rebound out of, you know. And then what happened was, you know, naturally, I was on the couch. I moved my stuff around. I'm like, oh, this is a pretty good angle on the TV. I turned on the football, or I was thinking it was maybe the World Series, but it was still the end of the Patriot game, the Bucs game. And I'm watching Brady because I like to do that. But man, I realized it. You know, this is like a big societal thing that I hardly ever sit or lay on my couch. I just don't. But man, if you're there for like an hour or so, it's tough to get off that thing. It was sort of a microcosm of like, I'm thinking to myself, no wonder people are out of shape, man. If you can get that habit going, you're in trouble.
Couch,
and I'd never do it. And it just.
Then where do you sit upstairs?
I usually sit at the a table or my desk chair. I just kind of spin. I like my desk chair. I just kind of spin around, kick it up on the spin around, watch it for a little bit. I don't usually watch a lot of TV really, but I had it set up yesterday. I'm like, World Series, I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
Condolences. Well, it's getting a little gnarly.
It is getting pretty.
Because you don't go back to Houston, man, without sweating. If you're a Braves fan,
you're gonna sweat. No, I feel the same way. Like Hayden kind of called me out, and I need to fess something else. I mean, the other day I put him to sleep, and before he went to sleep, he was like dozing off, and he was like, and I swear we'll talk about triathlon eventually.
This is the life part.
This is the life. You're enjoying it anyway. Whatever.
I am.
As he goes, you know what, Dad? And I'm thinking like he's gonna say something like really sweet. He goes, I never see you eat treats. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I get a treat, a couple times a week. He's like, you don't eat any treats. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, of course I'm thinking like, yeah, after you go to bed, I freaking go to town. And it's the same thing my grandfather used to do.
Hiding it.
It is. My grandfather used to do the exact same thing. We all have like a bunch of pie, and he would do the, I'm good. Showing, yep, I'm full.
No room.
No room. He's like, holding strong and showing his willpower. And then it's like we'd spend the night over there as grandkids, and like the next morning we'd open up the fridge, and we'd expect to see like a pie and a half still left, and there's like 2 slivers.
Yeah.
And we're like, and he'll look at me like, yeah, I got a little hungry for went to bed. And you're like, so you're not showing willpower anyway. But again, last night after he went to bed, because he was like, hey, I got you some Reese's. I was like, no, I'm good. And as soon as he went to bed, it's like these little demons crawling in the pantry. I went to town on the Reese's, because now they have like Reese's Pieces inside Reese's peanut butter cup. So I've had a few of those, and I immediately regretted it because I guess get that like sugar. It's not even a buzz. It's just I feel like I can feel my body like wither away. And I will say this: I believe that sugar is one of the most addictive things, about the most addictive thing on the entire planet.
I 100%
outside of maybe this podcast. But in all seriousness,
but it's weird because it gives you that numbing sense. It's like I felt really good about an hour ago. Now I just don't feel like doing anything. I'm spaced out. I can't focus, and all I want to do is lay on the couch and watch football.
It's like putting sludge in your engine, man. It's
unbelievable.
Like you just feel like junk. I know, but it's a great reminder. Yet we go right back to it all the time,
and it makes me think like that's why, man. It's like, what is it? Do you know of alternatives? Because when you're in deep training and you're pounding, I mean, I always say, goo and bars, all that shit is just the same. I mean, it's sugar.
So
it's not, I pour that all on the counter.
I don't think you need an alternative. Wow. I think it's based on, and listen, like Mike and I are in no position to be sports dietitians or nutritionists, but generally speaking, we know how our body feels. I think there's a direct correlation between just not doing stuff and eating like crap that just feeds off each other. I think if you're doing things that are active, I mean, like listen, you shouldn't need a candy bar and ice cream or cookies to reward yourself afterwards. That's not how you should look at food anyway. But I do think there's a direct relation between how you feel and the resistance of your body to like pounding sugar and like junk and crap when you're just sitting on your ass not doing anything. I just think it feeds the cycle that you're in to just not do anything because you feel like crap. But if you're like consistently turning out like 13, 14, 15 16-hour weeks, you're in 70.3 Ironman training. Like you can basically, like some people struggle to keep on weight. Like I know a bunch of people who basically like ride in the car with, peanut butter filled pretzels just to like, maintain like, to like
that.
feel up. So I don't think you need to like find a substitute because it's not, listen, nothing is quote unquote bad for you. Like if I had like, a Rolo or something I ran yesterday morning. But I also think like when most people don't have like a Rolo, or
I was gonna say you had a Rolo.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Or it's like having like one Pringle, right? No one has one Pringle. Like they say, once you pop, you can't stop. No one goes light. They go all in. So that's the problem. It's not. It's always about the amount, and I also think it's about not just the amount, but it's about the amount and then the environment that you're in. If you could just get done with a run. Hit up the pancake pantry, baby. Have a couple pancakes, some bacon, some eggs, and then like 2 hours later, you're probably hungry and you probably still feel fine. However, if you wake up, you don't do crap all day long, you eat like junk, and then you feel like crap, so you're going to eat like crap, and then what do you do the next day? Feel worse, so you do less again, and then you feel worse, so you eat less or you eat like crap again. It is that time of year where people go through this vicious cycle of becoming so sedentary because they're not training as much. You got a little bit of vacation time. You got Thanksgiving. You got the holidays. You got New Year's. You don't have to work as much. You got holiday parties. You got family. Every excuse starts to happen yesterday when Halloween. I just got candy in the house. You like all leftovers. Like everybody has leftover. Your house is full of candy. If you participated and did the Halloween thing, you got excess candy right now. It's just in your house. Then you're like, well, because now we start playing it's almost time, right? It's just like, it's November basically, because the next day, obviously today's November. You're like, I got Thanksgiving coming up. It's like some big kids.
It's devious.
It's devious, dude. It's like you're just kicking the can, kicking the scale, kicking your body, and you're just gonna feel like junk. And then after you go through all the holidays, that's the part of it where I think this part of the year is incredibly tricky for not just for people's physical health, and like we're not going to get on some like eating food cast, but it's also the time of year where people struggle the most mentally and emotionally. They go through the hardest parts of seasonal depression right now. Like it didn't get light today until like 8:00. Like it's like
I know.
I don't know if you knew that or not, but like I'm dropping Hayden off at school at 7:45, and I'm like it's pitch black still, right? Like it's pitch black. So you're not going to have this. So people just struggle. And then you combine the struggle that a lot of people have this time of year with the postseason struggle for some people, which you can call them an Ironman blues or Ironman depression, or just like taking a break from training, which so many people need. And as a coach, that's, I think, the hardest part for us to navigate is that so many people need training to feel and be the type of person that they really want and need to be on a day-to-day basis, because it helps them control life in an uncontrollable world. It allows them to be healthy, allows them to relieve stress. But at the same time, when they come accustomed to being able to do that for 12 to 16 hours a week during peak season, now you're like, I know you need it, but we do have to unload. Like we can't keep up this. So it's a great time here to be flexible, but so you're doing less, there's less light in the day, your races are farthest away, you've got the holidays, people fall into this trap of just regressing and sitting on the couch and becoming depressed. And then you and I have both been there, I think. I know I've been there for sure. You just don't want to get up anymore. I was reading through, I'm rocking the single dad life this week, so work's going to be a little bit off, and of course, it's very timely that his after school, the stuff that he had is now gone this week. So pick up back to early. But I was going through Training Peaks last night and I came across an athlete who the last like 2 or 3 days, it's been like, I just feel depressed. I don't want to do anything. I was lethargic. And I rarely ever say this or do this kind of thing, but I sent this athlete a text and I said, tomorrow, get off your ass. Get off your ass and go do something. The movement is medicine, and the longer you sit, the more likely you are to continue to sit. And it is a dangerous trap to get into. And I know you alluded to it in kind of in jest, but also in reality that it's no wonder that as a society and especially as a nation, we find ourselves in a lot of the predicaments we do, because you can do basically everything now, from your chair in front of your computer at the house, right?
Yep.
You can do, I mean, you and I could both do 95% of our job from either this recliner in our office or in front of our own laptop, wherever, sitting on our ass all day long, working, and somehow you're like, I think you forget how little you do. I think I even alluded to this maybe earlier last year. It's like, I just forgot like how much less I was doing like throughout the day, because mentally you're like, I'm doing a lot. And then you're like, I didn't move for like 5 or 6 hours. And you're like, and I'm inside. That's not good for you. And I think that a lot of people do fall into that trap. And it's just a dangerous one. I think that we should all be, A, we should be fine talking about, but B, that you should be very wary of falling into, especially if you know yourself to be a person who can, once you start to sit and you get that feeling of feeling like crap and that vicious cycle of, it's not the same as being an alcoholic like I was, where you feel like crap. You are, everything you do in life is crap. You feel guilty, you feel anxious, you feel shame, you feel all these things. So you drink a ton, and then you wake up the next morning, you feel like crap, and you have all those feelings over again because of what you did. So you do it again. And I think a lot of people on a different level find themselves in that kind of trap this time of year.
Mm-hmm. I think it's all kind of a relative thing too, because it's sort of like I feel like I've had sort of a low level angst for the last year and a half, or maybe my whole life. I don't know. You tell me. But I think that the problem,
angst or irritability.
Well, irritability maybe, but like when, like for example, because I believe that what you're saying is absolutely 100% correct. I also think that movement is medicine. But I also think that we were talking about last time, that community piece or that connective piece. And now all of a sudden for the last year and a half, it's sort of been this, trend or, movement to like, well, stay inside, stay away from people, isolate, all that stuff. And all of a sudden it becomes, like life is hard enough, man, yeah, without all this other shit going on. Like, you can't go near that person or whatever. Like that's where I've been. And I think that, for someone who I would say I'm an introvert extrovert, same as you, kind of like that same thing where I like to be but crossing that bridge sometimes isn't always easy, right? Once it happens, it's sort of like getting out the door to go running or whatever. But if you're sort of like giving excuses all the time to be like, stay in the house, you can work from home, screw that meeting or going to see that person. You can just do it over Zoom. And I've had this sort of, that's the thing with me about the Zoom thing, is that it kind of is associated with this sort of, we don't need to be connecting with other people anymore. We can just connect over a computer. And I know damn well how you feel after you sit on a computer for a long time. And it doesn't matter if somebody's face is on there. That might, jack you up for about 2 seconds. And then all of a sudden you're just sitting there looking at for what is just an avatar. And I mean, you just don't know. I mean, there's no touch. There's no any of that. Life has just turned into this sort of bits and digital kind of interactive texting whole thing. And I don't know, man. It sort of makes everything just a little bit harder. It was easy, because I was just sitting there, and normally you kind of lay around and watch football. And usually there's some people around, or you have a little football gathering or party or something like that. And just to sit up there and be, watching football, eating sugar, that's like a double whammy,
right?
Because to your point, when you're active, the sugar, I think you can get by. Your body is working better. It's more, on all cylinders.
Your blood's pumping. It's not
blood's
sitting there.
pumping.
It's
Everything's
like
going.
sludge.
And I think that's a little bit of what happens when you're around people, because it's sort of that thing about your grandpa or whatever that sneaks down and has pie at night. It's a different element of, you kind of, I remember that kind of thing when I'd wake up. Is there a burglar in the kitchen? No, it's just grandpa eating the extra pie or whatever. But it's sort of the sneaky, isolative kind of activity that I feel like we've been, in a way, sort of groomed to do more of. And that's what I think irritates me. Irritates.
Angst.
Angst
gives you angst.
Low level angst.
Low level. Some people call it, you're just, generally angsty and
I don't know the solution, but I'm just pointing it out.
Listen, I don't think there's a solution, because unfortunately the way our world is going, like you're talking about, like, meta means like whatever to connect or whatever crap that means, is like, that's not what it's sad that that's how we feel we connect now, right? It's like to get online and stare at our phone, stare at a device. That's how we connect anymore. And but that's also why, going back to community and like knowing, you should know. And again, I think we all need to kind of do this checklist for ourselves this time of year specifically, because I do believe that even in a regular world, the way it was 5 years ago, this was still a time of year where people begin to isolate, right? People hibernate, if you will. It's like, because it's colder outside, people aren't going to grill out, they're not going to hang, like the weather's kind of iffy, I'm not doing anything, you just generally spend more time inside. There's also less sun, there's less opportunities. So it's always been this time of year.
It used to have a purpose though.
Right. Yeah. To like rejuvenate and like
all the time.
And now it's all the time, for a lot of people.
Up our level of hibernation.
Right.
Let's go double down on hibernation.
Now we're just so double down on hibernating. We have like,
so I can feel it better.
We have, variety of different levels of hibernation. But again, like we just ended October, you're at the end of the year, right? You got November, December. And that's why I think dangerous is maybe, well, it's not really, it's apt to say that is what this time of year is for a lot of people in terms of holding on to the trajectory that they've had coming off the year and then trying to maintain some sense of like positivity and connectivity through what they've been able to do. They've been able to see people, which is also why we have Run Camp coming up next week, which is just, people don't come to run. They come to hang out in a lodge with their community, and to get you and I both know this. We will never be fooled into thinking people strictly come to these for the coaching and the workouts. No, people might hear about it because they might want coaching and a workout, but what people really want to do is just connect with people in a room together that have at least somewhat kind of a similar, interests in life, and even if they don't, can sit back, relax, and just kind of enjoy each other's company. And it rejuvenates and revitalizes people. And there's no other way to do that. And I just think that, and that's the other thing, kind of the tricky part of this time of year, is that not every athlete has that opportunity forward to them. They don't have that available. Maybe they're self-coached and they don't have that kind of community to go to. But that's why I do think you're seeing a kind of a rise in the interest of being a part of different types of communities. But there is no substitute for in-person, face-to-face connection. Like going to get coffee, hanging out with somebody, the energy you get. Just the energy that I get from us doing our podcast in the same room versus the way we used to do it is night and day, in terms of you're talking and I do get even on our Zoom call, you see athletes' faces and you get to connect and laugh about things. You know them very well. It's not some random salesperson from Nebraska, and you can talk about the same things and you get kind of a positive jolt and it wakes you up, but it's still not the same as being on the same room, right? No. The same thing goes for, how we've done did our podcast up to 400 of those we did not in the same room. It's just a different kind of energy. And I think people, and you saw the same thing with and again, going back to AA, is when COVID happened and a bunch of AA rooms shut down. And while there's and some of them aren't back yet, depending on what state they're living in or whatever. And there was a huge disconnect, obviously. And I've been on an AA Zoom meeting, and while it's helpful to a degree, it's nothing like being in the same room with the same type of people with the same thing. It's night and day. And I just think that we've, unfortunately, you were kind of joking about the hibernation thing, is I think we've unfortunately become kind of censored and jaded into a way of thinking of it's okay to feel this way. It's not our new normal. We're not meant to be disconnected from people for a long period of time. That's just not how most people are made. And I think sometimes we tell ourselves that. I've been going through this personally, in that I'm not saying I'm an extrovert, but I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy having a conversation and being chummy. I'm not quiet in a room of 3 to 4 people. I'm not the center of attention in a room of 20 by any stretch. I like my small groups. I'm a small grouper. I'm a small grouper, man. But I like that. And I remember, and that's always been something I've fed off of. And I know that for me personally, like when I got out of rehab and all the things I was going through, and then you move a few times and and it's like I kind of I became comfortable with kind of retreating and just kind of not being out and open and like connecting that much, because for me it was a safe haven, and it's been a hard habit for me to break. And because it is easy, like you said, hey, you want to go get coffee today? Nah, I got something going on, and like, but if you say yes, you'll love it. And you'll sit there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I think people know that too. And that's also kind of the negative drawback, because you're like, I don't have that kind of time. It's like, but you get sucked in, you're like, I don't want this to end. Can we keep talking? Because I think we finally realize when you have that, and a lot of times when we get done with one of our camps, like we've legit thought about saying, all right, we go to this place out in Northern Tennessee, middle of nowhere, basically limited to no Wi-Fi, limited cell service. We park, we have food catered. We don't leave. Like it's our own, like we're in our own like compound for like 4 or 5 days. People leave and they're like, I had no idea how much I needed that. And none of it has to do with running. And none of it, because, that's just kind of like the activity of the day. But we've generally thought about getting the feedback like, you know what? We should just rent this place out for a week and people can just come, and you don't even have to work out. You can just come and connect and be around and have fun. I think that so many people are missing that from their life. And while you and I both know that triathlon and endurance sports brings that healthy hobby, if you will, to focus on, right? Because there's worse hobbies to have, or addictions to have. You don't even go that far. What it also does to people, though, is it isolates us, because it's not a huge group thing. This time of year, you're not going on a bunch of group rides in 20-degree weather. You're not going out for a bunch of group runs. You're probably not going to get off your butt and go to the Masters. So if you go to those at 5 o'clock in the morning in 25-degree, sleet, you're like, no, I think being in my, bed in my jammies, right? This feels a lot better in my coffee than going out and freezing my butt off, getting in the pool. So you isolate even more. And so I think it's just, maybe it's not, it's just, we got to connect. Like it's so good for your mind and your body. And that ultimately leads you down a better path of just, it makes you feel better. And if you feel better as a person, you're going to work out better, and you're going to be able to maintain things. Your motivation is better, but you can't feel isolated, lonely, and depressed and anxious and also be like, but when it comes to this trainer ride, I'm going to turn it on. No, you can't flip that switch. You're just going to keep yearning for finding something to fill that void. But the only thing that can fill it is usually another person or a group or a community.
Because people are energy. Right, so if you're around
most
other people,
good energy, yeah. Well, there's some kind, right? You have good energy and bad energy.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. And then if you are not with other people or whatever, you're looking for energy in different weird places like phones or, the World Series. And sometimes, I think that with me at least, with the college football and all that stuff, I used to kind of get a jazz out of that, but it was sort of a, incognito dopamine burst of some sort, like I really do care, but it would be high and low and all this kind of stuff. And, that's not good. And even that, going through a high and low like that, when someone else is around, it kind of grounds the whole situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can think, because the minute you get your head wired around something, I'm not training enough, or I'm not doing this or whatever. But if you can talk that out, or, kind of you're with somebody, it levels things out. Well, no, neither am I. Oh, you're not? Oh, okay. I guess it's not that big of a deal. But I remember, because how I got in this sport, or how I got into running, was that Couch to 5K thing. And it was just sort of people all doing their thing. And it was always, after a while, I kind of was like, yeah, maybe I just do it on my own. Nope, I'm going to go. Kind of probably like how you felt about meetings for a while. I could just read about this tonight. I could go do this on my own. But it's not the same, You can't smell people. You can't smell people's breath on Zoom. You can't. I wonder how many people are, maybe out there, But I just, when you get further and further, and I tend to do it too, even, it's so weird. I'm kind of alone a lot. We do our thing here, and I do get a lot of energy from this podcast. And then suddenly, I live on a block with about 3 people or whatever. And then I want to go train, but the training schedule doesn't line up with, what you're doing. And the next thing you know, I just got to do my own workout again. And then it kind of like becomes this thing. So I really do admire people that can just be flexible and bend their workouts and just go do it with other people on the weekend. It doesn't, we always think about this rigidity of this has to be exactly this, or I'm not going to do, Ironman Wisconsin next year in the right time if I don't actually get in a 20-minute interval today or whatever. It's like, what? You get much more jack, I think, from going out with somebody like you said, and maybe hanging out afterwards with some breakfast and some coffee, and it just fuels the soul, man. And if you can't do that, I think you're going to just go empty in this sport. If you're not feeding the depths of your soul and your being with other people around you, I think you just burn out. And I don't know the answer.
No, and we were just like, coincidentally, we were talking about this before the podcast, even though we had, generally no idea what direction it was going to go. We had just mentioned about like December rules. Like last December, we did a podcast called December Rules, and we implemented it for our team. We went through the first, not all, I think I had like 9 or 10 for the team last December that they were encouraged, suggested, highly encouraged to do in December. And we went through, I think, not all of them, but the first, 4 or 5 on the podcast thing. I don't think we covered all of them. And our team's kind of already been joking about it because it's nothing is triathlon related. It's, like take a nap, go call a friend up that you haven't met before or that you haven't met in a long time and go grab a cup of coffee, read a book, like things that are, that disconnect you from triathlon, training, race. Cause that's one very small part of who you are, right? Even if you work out 2 hours a day, the other 22 hours a day, that's who you are. Like, and that's just, it's a compliment, and you can't complement things fully and to the best of your ability if you're not functioning well as just a general human being on this planet. And there are a lot of athletes, even more so than last year, right? That have been like, I think I need to start December Rules early. Yeah. I need some time to disconnect and to relax and to just, I just need a little bit, and we're seeing it. So I'm trying to do actually like these next few weeks, even like leading into Thanksgiving, we're both trying to provide opportunities for our athletes to, while they have an outline, they have structure, to feel free, to make things and to make time, because I do think that a lot of athletes have a very unhealthy relationship with how they see their inability or ability to do a session in a day. And that if they don't do it, then that's a negative thing about them as a person, as a triathlete, as an athlete, as a person who's non-committed. They're very disgusted with themselves for not getting that one swim in this week. I'm like, that's a problem. Like, that is a huge problem. If you use those kind of terms like, I'm really disappointed in myself, or I'm disgusted with myself, or I'm really bummed or down that I missed this one session. If you're more bummed about that than missing out on the cup of coffee you could have got with your buddy that you haven't seen in 2 weeks that was coming to town, but it might interfere with your 30-minute fartlek run, like, get a grip. Like, get your mind back into life. The thing that's going to, again, like, everything we're doing in life is either cultivating a better version of yourself that's going to prolong you through life, or it's degrading you, right? Or you're grasping for air. And so much of what we should be doing, obviously, is providing ourselves more opportunity for energy and for oxygen. And that's how we live. Like, the positivity of the people that, like you said, like, we joked like, people should be energy. I'm like, well, not really, but that's true. It's negative energy or it's positive energy. And I think a lot of athletes spend so much of their time being so negative with themselves and so hard that I oftentimes question, is this even a good thing? Like, it is what I'm, and I think that's a good question for all athletes to ask themselves, and even coaches because that's what it is. A coach and an athlete, you're in a partnership and a relationship with each other. Like, that's what it's a partnership. It's not a dictatorship. It's a partnership. And I've said this sometimes to athletes before, and I've said, listen, like, things need to be different, because the way I hear you talk about missing training, the things I hear you and read that you say about yourself when you miss a session, that you're never happy about anything, even if it's the best workout you've ever done, you're still never happy and you're still beating yourself up in these. You see the rise in self-criticism and self-talk and just beating themselves up for missing a day when their kid was sick, or they're like, I can't believe, I'm like, then something needs to change, right? Because we do this to, again, like positively impact who we are as people, not to provide ourselves a way to publicly and privately flog ourselves into oblivion. This is the time of year to recalibrate the foundation in which you can see yourself performing and just living in 2022. Don't wait till January 1st. Right now is that time. Be kind to yourself. Choose things in life that, like, listen, we've talked about this many times before, and I think even on a bunch of podcasts, is like the most valuable asset that we have is time, right? And how you choose to use your time every day is the most expensive thing you can do too, or the least expensive thing you can do. But it's about what gives you energy and what gives you oxygen, what allows you to breathe freely, or what's going to give you more anxiety. Like the things you do should relieve all those negative things and then increase the positive things you should feel about yourself. And so I just think I would encourage everybody to kind of go through that checklist. All right, well, if I do have this negative relationship with training, or I do have this negative self-talk, like, why do I do it and why do I keep doing it? Because it doesn't seem like it's doing something good. And if you're a coach and you have athletes that are always negative and never happy, then you need to push them, to think about, then why are you doing this? And feel confident and empowered to challenge the athlete to say, well, it's because it's never training related. It's always life related, right? And then I just think, going back to what you said about life is hard enough already. It's like training in triathlon and your community or your coach or your whatever your training plan should be a life advocate, right? It shouldn't be something that increases the stress level in a negative way in your life.
Mm-hmm. I pay attention to things like vibration. You hear people talking about vibrating at a higher level or whatever like that. And I think it's amazing to me. We talk about the thing on our website, and what we talk about all the time is happy and healthy, and how that is the goal, right? Or it's a loose goal, but what does that mean? I don't know. But we spend so much time not really pursuing that goal. I remember back to my days in corporate America when I literally would get up and just dread going in, and then I'd get in and think that, I'd be lifted up in a vibrational energy scale, and it would go worse. It would just slowly throughout the day kind of go worse, and then it would just keep digging a deeper and deeper hole. But then we do these workouts that feel really good. It could be a 30-minute run or 20-minute run or just a quick little dip in the pool. It makes you feel amazing. And I'm always thinking to myself, why don't I do stuff like that more? Why don't we do stuff like that more as humans? Why do we purposefully, kind of put ourselves in a, Excel spreadsheet for 10 hours a day when we know that that's not healthy for us, or whatever it is? It's the movement, it's the tactile experience, it's those things that in your gut make you feel good. And and the reason I say this is because I spent so many years thinking, but now I'm getting older, and now I'm kind of like in that effort mode, a little bit, where it's like, man, it makes no sense to do shit you don't like to do, or that makes you feel bad, or drags you down further, or creates a vicious cycle that, you just can't get out of. I mean, we're running a business, and we're pretty good about like, can we put this back? Yeah, whatever, just like, it's important to be able to, not feel guilty about doing shit that really doesn't matter, but you keep doing it over and over,
I think that's one of the hardest things about how it's always gone this way, I think, but what we've as a society have allocated into the spots of importance of what's the most important. And then you think about it, like, and how much you do to go towards things that doesn't matter, that just don't matter. And how much that's how like we've created a life and an acceptable lifestyle for most of us. That's like, if you just really kind of sit back and think, you're like, what the F am I doing with my time? Like do I really need, like, what's not giving? Like, I need something to give back. Like, to me, like, I remember in The Obstacle Is the Way, and I think Ego's Enemy, or the Ryan Holiday books that I love, he always talks about, he was like, I don't take meetings or coffee or anything like that if I don't have to. He was like, I connect with the people I need to. He's like, I don't read random emails. He was like, my time is my time. He was like, if you feel like you have to respond to everybody all the time and do everything, then you're going to be left with nothing. Yeah. Like, and he was like, my time, I think he lives like with his wife and their son, or maybe 2 kids, like, outside of Austin, like a ranch or something like that. He was like, my time is the most valuable thing that I have in my life. And so when I choose to give it away, I try to be very, very, very selective about the what and the to who that I do it for. And I think we've again become, as humans, we feel like we stretch ourselves so thin by trying to take on so much that we wonder why we don't feel so strong, right? Or empowered, or like we don't have the ability to bounce back, and like, because you're stretched so thin, right? Like your cup is empty because all you do all day long is have it with the spout poured out, like giving it to other people or your job, or like, it's okay. And I also think there's like a misconception of like the definition of being selfish is like, self-care is not selfish, right? It's like, that is not selfish. Like, people say that all the time about the AA program. It's like, it's a selfish program. I disagree with that phrasing of it, but to an extent, it's correct, because if you don't take care of yourself as an alcoholic, then you will never be in the shape to take care of anyone else, right? You will never be able to, you will never have other things, opportunities in life. And I think as a society, we've become so normalized into we have to do all these different things and say yes to all these different things all the time so we can feel like we're doing enough. And then we feel like, and then the other day you're like, did I even do anything for myself today? Which again is where training and triathlon falls into that piece for so many people, and that it is their one thing. Like, we gained so many athletes, and our roster grows so big, we had to take on and add extra coaches during the pandemic with no racing, because so many people wanted something, to be a part of something, to have the ability to have structure and training with their life and good things and a positive vibe. But that's what makes what we do as, endurance enthusiasts, if you will, the time that you allocate towards your hobby or towards your time to give back to yourself. Think about it this way. If that's your only time to give back to yourself today, like, you wake up, you got to get your kids ready for school, you got to get them off to school, then you got to go to meetings, and you got to take a job, then you got to go pick your kids up, you got to make them dinner, you got to do all these kind of things. You're left with like a 90-minute span for you before you got to go to bed and start all over again. If you're choosing that 90-minute span to be filled with expectations, or I can't do this good enough, or this isn't going to be what I want it to be, and you're using that time instead, to be negative instead of to do something positive for your life, then you're choosing to take that 30 to 92 hour span of your life that should be dedicated towards yourself in a positive way. And all you're doing is increasing the negative headspace, and you're removing energy from your life. Then it's a net loss, right? In the amount of time and the focus. So go into your stuff, and again, like you said, choose to do the things in life. If it's not an hour-long run with, specific intervals you have to meet, and you'd rather just go for a walk with your buddy or hit the trail for 30 minutes and who cares what it is, or not wear your watch, then go do it, right? Because it's about being a better human and doing what you need as a person, not what has to be for, Mike and Robbie, the athlete today, 24/7.
Yeah. We get all these things like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, like that kind of stuff.
Or forever.
I just think there's an overall sort of force that we've created that, puts that guilt on us. Now, if you're doing your work, you're talking about your treatment or your personal work that you need to do for AA. In other words, you have to do that to be a person that can then, affect other people or be nice to other people, whatever it is. And I feel like, and that's, people call that selfish or whatever. I think it's selfish that people call it selfish, because who am I? You know what I mean? Like, why do I need your attention? Or why do you have to pay attention to me? Or whatever that case may be. That means that I have to do my own work too. Mm-hmm. And that should be a good thing. And I think that we should all really kind of look inside more than to kind of, we just have a tendency to, that person, isn't responding to me. Why won't they? That's wrong. They're selfish, or whatever the case may be. That's just sort of how it's been drawn up. And I think it's a tricky loop, to say the least. Mm-hmm. We should be spending time doing things that we love and that make us feel better about ourselves, so we can, spread that to others, I guess. Otherwise, it's just going to be this low-level anxiety all the time. It's like, I can't get my own shit together. How am I going to make them happy?
Right.
Yep. Anyway, so take that into your triathlon training.
Take that. Top 10 ways to increase your time of putting on your T-shoes. That's all we got. That was a life cast. Listen, it's all related. It's your life, man. Totally Triathlon makes up a small part of it. We appreciate you listening. As always, hop over to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Also, our ongoing club package that launches today, officially. Go in.
It's launched.
It is launched. Go in, be a part of it. Click on the info. Let us take care of your training for next year, which can be tricky and overwhelming and chaotic. And we can smooth that out for you, as cool as the other side of the pillow. You can also head over to our Instagram, check out more things about our community. That's at C26 Triathlon. And if you need anything from Mike specifically, you can always get a hold of him. He is at crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me, I'm at C26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man.
All right, see you.